Welcome back to the channel. My name is Joseph Gutierrez, and this is covering compounding. In today's video, we're going to take a look at funding sources and taxes in relation to fixed indexed annuities, specifically fixed indexed annuities with the income rider. We'll also take a look at the classic example of someone at the doorstep of retirement, age 65, moving their funds into an FIA with the income rider. How much guaranteed lifetime income will they get? And spoiler alert, it is much more than the 4% rule. So let's go ahead and take a look. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the funding sources and general tax rules in relation to fixed index annuities with the income rider, okay? Remember our retirement ready triangle, the base of that triangle is the most important part of the triangle, guaranteed income. Fixed index annuities with the income rider guarantees us a steady income floor for as long as we live, and if a joint payout structure for as long as we and or our spouse are alive. Okay, so let's go ahead and jump over to the whiteboard just to kind of get the concept down, and then we're going to take a look at some live numbers from a 65-year-old prospect who's looking at putting together their own fixed index annuity. Okay, so first things first, we're talking about funding and taxes for FIAs, fixed index annuities, with the income rider. Okay, so on the funding side, we generally see that funding takes place from two different types of accounts. So on one side, we're going to have our qualified accounts. Okay, so qualified accounts. What do we mean by this? This is basically our old 401ks, traditional IRAs, so traditional IRAs, basically our pre-tax money. Okay, money that has not been taxed yet. Now, whether that came from an employer-sponsored 401k that you've been growing over time and appreciating to the point where you're looking to move funds into the proper vehicles for retirement, that is an option here through these qualified accounts. Now, remember, when we're moving funds from, say, a old 401k with your old employer over to an annuity, remember that's considered more of a rollover, a like and kind type rollover. So this rollover is not a taxable event. Okay, because technically we're going from a traditional IRA held in some kind of brokerage account to a traditional IRA held with the annuity company. So it stays inside the traditional IRA structure. It's only taxable when we take disbursements, when we turn on income. Okay, so tax on disbursement. Okay, and how is the tax taking place? Well, it's going to be taxed as ordinary income. Okay, just like if you're receiving a wage from a job or you held a treasury bond and got a yield from that treasury bond. Okay, so some people are more familiar with 60-40 splits, the 40% or bond yields. Okay, that particular income is treated as ordinary income. All right, so what is the other common way that we like to fund these types of fixed index annuities here? Well, the other common way is non-qualified accounts. So what do we mean by this? So this is our after money accounts. This may be coming from maybe a brokerage account or savings. Okay, so this is after tax. After tax money. We've already been taxed on these funds, and if we're looking to kind of position them better into a product like the fixed index annuities with the income rider, is one way we can do it. So remember, the tax rules for this, because it's already been taxed, at least the principal, the basis, as we're going to refer to it oftentimes here, it's going to have this kind of last in, first out, this LIFO structure. So last in, first out. So what do we mean by this? Well, remember, the fixed index annuity has a crediting structure, kind of this growth rate internal to the annuity. So essentially, we're tied to different kind of strategies, index strategies, maybe tied to the S&P 500 or something similar, maybe more custom strategy. And we're going to get crediting as long as those strategies are positive. They're going to do these call options against a particular index. And if the call option is positive, we're going to get some level of crediting subject to caps and participation rates. So if the strategy does well, we're going to get credited a certain amount of money. If the strategy does poorly in that year, let's say the underlying index goes down 20%, well, because it's a fixed index annuity, we have that 0% floor. So we don't have to worry about losing money, losing principal because of market disruptions or market action, okay? So just remember that inside we have an internal growth rate inside the policy that kind of holds up and grows the policy over time. Okay, and then we can turn on our income whenever we want, whether we do it immediately, like we're going to be showing in today's example, or we defer for a little bit longer period of time for maybe a higher payout. We still have that crediting going on. Now, that crediting is going to be treated differently than the principal, than the basis, right? Because it is considered a gain, right? So any crediting is going to be taxed, and the principal or basis is not taxed. Okay, and we're going to be basically doing a calculation every year when we take out income or when we take any kind of disbursement. We're going to be doing a little mini calculation to figure out what our tax is. So the best way to look at this, just kind of run through a very basic example. So let's go over here, and we have this little chart kind of printed out here, kind of give us an idea of how this works. So let's say we have, and remember, we have a 65-year-old male. In our example for today, they have $500,000, and they're going to be turning on income immediately. So no kind of deferral period. They move over their funds, turn on the income. Okay. So what we'll see here, so we have our contract value. We'll run through a couple examples here to kind of give an idea of how this works. So we have our $500,000 contract value, and we have our crediting for that year. Let's say we're tied to the S&P 500, and that S&P 500 has a cap around 5%. The S&P 500 does poorly for that particular year. So we get a 0 year, okay? Remember, we don't lose money from market action. The lowest we can get with crediting is a 0 year. We have a 0 crediting year. In that case, we're still going to, because we're turning on income, we're electing to turn on that lifetime withdrawal benefit income. In this particular example, and what we'll see shortly, our income is about 8%. So it comes out to $40,000. Okay, so $40,000 per year. And we'll see this here in the illustration shortly. The income is coming from the policy, from the annuity. So what's our taxable amount? Well, our taxable amount, because we didn't have any gain, it's all going to be coming from the principal, the basis. So our taxable amount is 0 for that year. So we don't have to worry about taxes for that particular year. What about the next year? What's our new contract value? Well, it's the old contract value minus the disbursement of that income. So it's going to be 460K. So let's say for year number 2, the crediting is well, and we hit our upper limit, so we hit 5%. So our crediting is about 5% for that year. So what's our income going to be? Well, that 5% tacked on top of the basis of $460,000. So it's going to look something like this, where we have $23,000, which is the credit amount, plus whatever else we need to get that $40,000. So it's going to be $17,000. So this $23,000 is a credit amount which is going to be open to tax. And then the $17,000 is going to be coming from the return of premium that's not open to tax. Okay, so the taxable amount in this year is $23,000. Okay, and then our contract value decreases by $17,000. So we're going to be looking at $443,000 on our new contract value, and on and on and on. And just to kind of round out the examples here, let's say a couple years go by, we're at $200,000. Let's say we also have another 5%. So what does that mean? We're going to get $10,000 gain, okay, credit amount, so that's open to tax, plus the income. Remember, we're still getting that $40,000 every year, so the rest is going to be coming from the basis. So that's the return of premium. That's $30,000 right there. So what's our taxable amount in this case? Taxable amount is $10,000. Okay. Moving on. If we have 100K, again, let's say the S&P 500 does well, get our 5%. Well, we're looking at 5K plus 35K. So you see the kind of structure here. As we're taking income, our taxable amount is going down over time until we get to essentially zero. So depending on how the index does, how the growth rate is, generally somewhere in our late 70s, maybe early 80s, was when the contract value decreases all the way down to zero. But unlike maybe a 60-40 split or some other kind of investment account, even though the contract value goes down to zero, and because we don't have a contract value, the crediting doesn't matter, we're still going to get our $40,000 income for as long as we live, right? $40,000 for as long as we and or our spouse, if we do a joint payout policy, are alive. So our taxable amount in that case will now be $40,000. Okay, because at that point, the IRS looks at this like basically this is all gravy. This is all a gain. This is all basically profit from the contract, from holding the contract. Okay, we've already gotten all our money back, all our $500,000 back, plus some of the crediting that's taken all the way through this time period, about 10, 15, 20 years, depending on how well the indexes do. And then from that point on, we could live to age 90, 95, 100, whatever. We're still going to get that $40,000, and it's going to be treated more or less like our qualified account, where it's all going to be open to taxation. Okay, so that's essentially how taxes work, and this is with these non-qualified accounts. Remember, this is non-qualified. Now, some of our clients, just a word on taxes, some of our clients are kind of like scared or nervous about tax planning and retirement. Just remember that there's a whole lot of deductions for seniors. Okay, so we don't give tax advice here on the channel, but from what we've seen, there's a number of different tax deductions that seniors and retirees take advantage of to lower their effective tax. So your tax bracket, remember we're on a progressive kind of gradient type of tax system. Your effective tax on your total income between that and Social Security and other income sources may be considerably less, okay, than what the tax bracket you're looking at it looks like. So just keep that in mind when you have your conversation with your tax advisor. And just a note on strategy when it comes to fixed indexed annuities from non-qualified accounts. Notice that the taxable amount is going down for the first 10, 15, maybe 20 years or so. This actually kind of works in our favor here, as most of the funds are coming from a return of premium up until we get to the contract value zero, and then it's all gravy, it's all profit from the insurance carrier. So what's nice about this is that we basically have a decreasing tax bill in relation to our FIA, and which is great during our early years of retirement, because a lot of times we're moving assets around and maybe doing a Roth conversion or doing other things. And we kind of want to minimize our taxes, especially age 65 to 70, age 65 to 73, 75, okay, right before the RMDs and things like that. We want to kind of contain our taxes and doing it in this way with a non-qualified account, if your funding matches with this, it's kind of a nice thing where we have a little bit more room. We're getting that income, but we're not having to necessarily pay tax because most of it is a return of premium. So moving on here, now that we kind of have the understanding of of the different funding sources and how the taxes take place, especially for non-qualified accounts, let's go ahead and look at examples with some real numbers from an actual annuity carrier and how they pay out and how much income we can get as a 65-year-old. Okay, so let's take a look. All right, great. Let's go ahead and take a look at an actual example of a retiree or pre-retiree, 65-year-old male in the great state of Texas, and he's looking to get ready for retirement. If he moves over $500,000 from a non-qualified account, what would that look like in terms of income? Okay, so looking on our illustrative tool here, we can see we have a 65-year-old male from Texas, $500,000, and we are looking at the best possible income source for ourselves. Okay, so we're looking at the fixed index annuities with the income rider. Now, as we look down here, we're obviously commencing payments immediately at age 65. So we're going to roll over the funds from a non-qualified source, move it on over into the annuity, and turn on income. What is our income going to be? Well, we can see right here at the top here, we can see Talcott, a minus carrier here, is going to be paying out $41,400 per year for as long as he lives. So let's go ahead and jump over to the illustration software. All right, great. So we can see here we have this annuity illustration for our client, and we'll take a look here. So a 65-year-old male, just like we talked about before, and this is that $500,000 right here, and it's coming from a non-qualified tax source. Okay, so we're activating lifetime income here at 65 as well. What's nice about this particular carrier and this particular product is we get a nice income base bonus. So remember the math that goes on in the background here. We have our benefit base times our withdrawal rate. Okay, our lifetime withdrawal rate, and that's going to equal our payout. Okay, so if we get a 20% bonus, that's just going to increase our benefit base. And it's just a number that goes into a calculation that spits out how much income we're going to make. In this case, we're getting over 8%, which is great. Okay, and like we always do here, we'll just touch on the ledger. We can see that we're getting our benefit base jump to, looks like $600,000 right here. And we can see that our lifetime annual withdrawals are going to be for $41,400 for as long as we live. Okay, and this is guaranteed by the insurance carrier. Okay, and we can go on down here, and we notice that this crediting rate, just kind of like how we were talking about, where if we had a 0 year, then our contract value would start decreasing. We can kind of see that here, the beginning and end contract value are going down. There's also a rider charge. Okay, that rider charge supports this $41,400, and that comes off of the contract value as well. So it would, in this case, it's the $41,400 subtracted against the contract value and with an additional subtraction of the rider charge. Okay, some people don't like charges, and that's understandable, but the rider charge, is what allows us to have this over 8% withdrawal rate. Okay, so we're getting $41,000 plus on our money, on our $500,000 our investment into this particular annuity. Okay, and we can roll on down here the hypothetical. This is assuming that we're tied to the S&P 500. It has a 4.5% cap. Remember, caps and participation rates with fixed index annuities with the income rider are lower than some of the accumulation-based fixed index annuities because they are supporting this large payout structure, this guaranteed payout structure. Okay, there are other indexes that we can get a higher crediting rate, higher than what we can see here, 4.5% caps. Okay, and that's something that we would go over during a consultation when we're looking at these kind of annuities. And we can see here that with that crediting, it does take our annuity contract value payout a little bit further, closer to 79 years old, 78, 79 years old, okay, as opposed to a little bit earlier in our mid 70s, okay. And we can roll on down here. Some basics about this particular annuity: has a 4% roll-up rate, so it's an automatic increase in our benefit base. It doesn't really apply for today because we're taking income immediately, but if we were to defer for a number of years, that's the amount of increase in our benefit base, which is part of that calculation for our guaranteed income, okay, for our payout, okay. The other nice thing is we have this income-based bonus of 20%. Pretty great stuff, which is what allows us to have this larger payout. So again, we are getting over 8% here. If we come on down here, we can see that at issue, we have an income to premium ratio of 8.28%. Okay, we're not doing a 4% rule kind of thing. We're way above that. And to answer the question from earlier in our intro here, we're doing a little over double, just a tad over double the income as far compared to the 4% rule. Now, that income survives us for as long as we live. Okay, so if we try to mimic that with a stock portfolio or 60-40 split, we're going to run into trouble because we're going to start running out of income because our account value just get pulverized. That's why it's the 4% rule, because it just can't hold up compared to annuity. Okay, those kind of accounts are better for other things, for appreciation and those kind of things. They all kind of fit into our philosophy on retirement. It's just as far as income goes, fixed index annuities, even and SPIAs, DIAs, things like that are superior, and this is why. We can get more than double our as far as income goes. And if we were to defer for a number of years, let's say we defer for 5 years, we can see that our income to premium ratio, our effective payout, is just under 10%, which obviously is much better than 4% as well. Okay. Okay, thanks again for watching. In today's video, we looked at funding sources and tax considerations with fixed index annuities with the income rider. We saw how on the qualified side, it's basically treated as ordinary income because it hasn't been taxed yet. And on the non-qualified side, whether it's coming from your savings, brokerage account, whatever, that income is based on the LIFO rules of last in, first out. So any gain is subject to tax, while the rest is treated as a return of premium. It's kind of nice because at least in the first 10, 15, 20 years of retirement, the income from that annuity is all being treated as a return of premium, so our tax is much lighter. Tax is much lighter in the early years of retirement, which is great because we're probably running around doing things, exploring the world, moving assets around. We want to kind of maintain and minimize our taxes, especially in the early years. And then obviously we have that guarantee of lifetime income for as long as we live, okay? And then obviously once the contract value runs to zero, then it's treated as just ordinary income tax, okay? Thanks again for watching. Be sure to get our free ebook here, the Retirement Ready Model. We talked about the guaranteed income layer for today with fixed index annuities. Okay, there are other layers that all go into our philosophy on how to make it through retirement safely and soundly through insurance-based products. Insurance-based products give us guarantees for income, for accumulation, for the health benefits, for any kind of health issues that we may have that we can't get anywhere else. No 4% rule, no portfolio can give us those kind of guarantees. If anything, they're best, in our opinion, they're best for accumulation and or giving to the next generation, while the insurance-based assets that we like to talk about on this channel help support those goals. That's what a lot of our clients like to do with it. Okay, thanks again for watching. If you're interested in putting together your own fixed indexed annuity or any other insurance-based product for the retirement ready model here, be sure to click the link in the description. It'll take you to our webpage where you can see much of our information. You can download a copy of the retirement ready model. You can also investigate through our quote tool different fixed index annuities and their payouts for your situation, your state. And you can also book an online consultation. Okay, during that first consultation, it's just getting to know you. What are the problems that you've foreseen and how we could possibly help alleviate those issues, those stresses for retirement. And it's only during our second meeting that we put together a more comprehensive retirement income plan with these insurance-based products so you can have that worry-free retirement that you deserve. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to click like and subscribe. Ring the bell for future notifications on our upcoming content. And I look forward to helping you become retirement ready. Till next time.